Hi, welcome to my channel, welcome back to my channel. This probably won't be the first video I post on the channel, but if it is, hi, welcome. I'm Crystal and I love MBTI, amongst other things. This video is going to be me talking about the cognitive functions of MBTI. Very briefly, like the main few points. So we're going to be a long video as it is, because I have to get through all 8 cognitive functions, and it's a very complex type of, how to explain it, it's very big and complex, and it's a lot more complex than what most people even know about. Now, cognitive stack is 4 different functions that you have, and the whatever 4-letter type code you got is essentially a key to working out what the cognitive functions are, or alternatively you could work from the cognitive functions and then find the type. So it works either way. Most people, it's kind of hard how to work it out, so I could probably make a whole video on that. But for example, if you got ISFP as your MBTI type, your cognitive stack would go FI, SE, NI, and TE. So you have a feeling function first, and a thinking function last. In the middle, you have a sensing function and intuition function. What I'm saying probably doesn't make much sense to you now, because I haven't actually explained all the functions yet, which I will get to right now. Different categories you can separate the cognitive functions into. So sensing and intuition are perceiving factors, because they're how we perceive the world. They're how we perceive the world and interpret information. Judging factors are thinking and feeling, because it's how we make decisions and make choices, that kind of thing. So we have the 2 perceiving functions, except there's actually 4, because sensing, there's 2 different types of sensing and 2 different types of intuition. So let's just look at the perceiving functions first. So for SI, the first thing I wrote is storehouse of experiences, because this function and people who use this function, specifically it's the first or second function, store all their experiences for later reference. So what I mean by that is, if you go to a party and then later, another time you get invited to a party, you immediately think back to that other time you went to a party, and if you choose to go to this now party, you compare the party you're having now with the party you went to last time, and you kind of do this throughout your whole life to try and find what's similar themes or trends, what's consistent and what's not, those kinds of things. It says past orientated, because they are past oriented. I wrote past oriented because they are past oriented. Like I said, they're always looking at past experiences and how they're similar to the ones they're having now, and they compare between the present and the past, and they sort of use their knowledge of the past to predict what will come in the future. And I wrote detail oriented. They're very sort of they see all the different detailed points in things, and they might get a bit lost on the bigger picture. They see the smaller details, which can be quite an asset in some careers, some places, that kind of thing, but can be a fault other times. They tend to have a very good memory. Again, not everyone with high SI, that being the first or second function, is going to have a good memory, because humans are all different. But generally, people with SI have a very good memory, specifically for like specific details in the sensory environment. So they might remember a moment because they saw like this specific kind of scarf, or they might remember it by like any sort of physical thing. So they won't remember like based on, they might, but they remember it pretty much from anything in their sensory environment kind of thing. And now on the other hand, you have SE, extrovert sensing. So while SI is focused on the past, SE is focused on the present and a tiny bit of the future, like the possibilities. They're focused on the present, the here and now. They tend to live in the moment, is the phrase, to experience like just whatever's happening at the time. They go with the flow kind of thing. SE, as it being an extroverted function, is dependent on the external world. Especially in the case of SE, it's the physical world and the sensory environment. So more often than not, they like a lot of sensory experiences. So they might like going to parties, or like raves, or like concerts, or just things where there's new sensory experiences, or like really big kind of thing, or like extreme intense time things. Not everyone likes that. I don't, but these kinds of people seek new experiences, and how they sort of understand and learn things is through physical experiences. So they can't just sit and like read and kind of learn that way. They have to like do, and they're focused on the what is actual. So some cognitive functions and some people, that kind of thing, they're more focused on what could be, or the possibilities. And while SE is focused a little bit on possibilities of what they can experience, they're mostly focused on what is actually happening and how they can do in that situation. So they're very like, they can be very quick on their feet, very good at making decisions last minute or adjusting to changes. And they prefer like hard data over theories. So, you know, if there's data which supports something, they're more likely to believe it, whereas if there's not any like concrete data. So that is SE and SI of the sensing factors. On the other hand of the perceiving functions, we have intuition. Now, intuition is the only function in which the first letter of the factor is not the first letter for the code of the cognitive function. It's not the I, it's the N. So intuition, I write it here. So we use the N instead, just because otherwise we'd be writing I. But again, we have the introverted version and the extroverted version. So we have NI and NE. So with the way that they work, in the perceiving functions, you'll have one introverted function, one extroverted function, and you have one sensing function, one intuition function. Therefore, you'll either have SI and NE, or NI and SE. And depending on the positions, you may use one a lot more than the other. They may be a bit more equal, but you cannot have two different introverted functions within the perceiving range. So let's go ahead and talk about the points that I wrote. So NI is kind of one that I think not a lot of people understand that much. They are very future focused and often have this like grand scheme, not necessarily a scheme, but this grand idea of the future, and they sort of think, oh, how can I get there? And they just make plans on how to get there. They're very good at connecting the dots. So it's hard to think of an example. Like if you're trying to solve a mystery, they could take the information and find links between them and come to a conclusion, because they see the bigger picture almost always, which is kind of the opposite to SI, as we talked about earlier. They see the small parts, NI sees the bigger picture. So when they see these small parts, they want to connect them and see what is the bigger picture here. And that can be like on a grand level, like about the meaning of life or purpose, or it can be something smaller, you know. They often see, in the same way that they try and see the bigger picture of the small details, they will see certain things and notice them as like patterns that repeat, or like trends, and use it to predict the future and that kind of thing. They're often also see what isn't explicit, so they kind of, in a sense, read between the lines, but it's not necessarily like just what people say or what people mean. It's with most things, they see behind face value. So yes, that's NI. And now NE is all about exploring the possibilities and ideas. And in their minds, they see that everything is connecting, like everything is connected in some way. If you've ever seen the show Dark Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, he says that everything is connected. That's kind of like a very NE, it's how to explain it, because to them everything that happens is connected and there are a million possibilities. Well, NI wants to know sort of like what's the true bigger picture, like what's the one meaning kind of thing. Like to narrow it down, NE likes to do the opposite and open it up. Like they want to see what could be possible, because there's not really much else I can write for NE except that they want to explore possibilities and interconnectedness. They're like the people who say, but what if kind of thing. A lot of them like conspiracy theories, not in the, I mean, everyone could like conspiracy theories, but they're the kind of people who you'll talk about like a conspiracy of parallel universes, and they'll expand upon it, and they'll be like, but what if this was like this, or what if it was like this, what if it was like that? Like, they like to, I don't know how else to phrase it, they like to explore the possibilities and ideas, and like, that's just, there's not really much other way to put it than that. So on the judging side of the functions, we have feeling and thinking. So with feeling, we have FI and FE, and then with the thinking functions, we have TI and TE. So let's get on to the descriptions of the functions. FI. FI is concerned with their own truth, in a way, like their own personal morals and values. They believe in what they think is right, and it doesn't matter what, like, necessarily what other people believe is right, it's what they believe to be right. They're very much concerned with authenticity. They're really attracted to people who are being their true selves. They can often tell if someone's not being their true self, like if they're fake, and they like people who are their true selves, and they're very sort of concerned with authenticity, and they often express themselves in unique ways, and that kind of thing. They have a lot of emotions, which most people do, but they sort of internalize them and they don't express them through word. They might express them through actions, or maybe in a creative sense. A lot of them channel their emotions in a creative way, such as drawing, painting, writing, anything like that. Could be like FI yeah, they're essentially like stick to their own beliefs and values kind of thing. They have their own system of what's good and what's bad in the world, and it's not really, it doesn't come from any external factors, just their being and how they feel things like that. Okay, with FE, they're more concerned with the societal rules and sort of the like typical things, more concerned with having social harmony, so they usually adhere to shared social norms and being polite and that kind of thing. Whereas FI are more likely to question it and be like, well, like in my values, like I don't believe in that, so I'm not gonna do it. FE are more likely to just go along with things for the sake of having peace. Although, if they do stand up for their own values, they often do it in a very influencing way, because people who have a high FE, either the first or second function, often have a great understanding of emotions and how to express them, how others express them, so they can almost project their emotions onto you. So they're the ones who make those inspiring emotional speeches that, you know, like make you feel the way that they're feeling and inspire you, all that kind of thing. Or the ones that if they want to hurt you, they can really hurt you. And they tend to fit in more than FI, because FI doesn't care all that much about fitting in. They might, but typically they are more concerned with being themselves and staying true to who they are, whereas FE is more about keeping the peace and having social harmony and making others happy. Now moving on to thinking functions. So we have TI, which I wrote logical consistency, because they're essentially trying to gather all this information about the world and organize it in a way in their head, like an internal system of logic to work out how the world works, that kind of thing. And it's all based on logical consistency. They want to know the truth and logically explain why things are the way they are. They will kind of take concepts and ideas and unbuild and unpack them to try and understand them. So I'm trying to think of an example. I can't. But they just sort of take all this information they find, unpack it, and try and understand it and kind of organize it. It's almost like in a mental mind map on the way the world works, and they very much like to analyze and categorize things. So they might have different like systems in their mind of like how things are, and sometimes if they're challenged they can get upset, but sometimes they just want to hear what people have to say, take that information on board to try and reanalyze other systems. Now TE is more concerned with building structures than deconstructing them to understand. They are the kind of people you might find in business quite a lot, because they're action oriented and they are concerned with efficiency and effectiveness. They want to build structures or sort of change the way things are done in a way that makes sense to them, that's more efficient and effective. And it's less about trying to understand why the way things are, more so than just changing them to how they view that they should be. They want to create order to the world where they see there's chaos. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. I hope this all makes sense. Let me know what kind of video you want to see next. Probably gonna do one about like the orders of the function in the cognitive stack, and I'm going to do one on the how the four-letter code can be like decoded to work out what the cognitive functions are, or vice versa, taking the cognitive functions to get your four-letter code, that kind of thing. Anyway, I really should go because this video is over 30 minutes long. Bye!